Welcome everyone to our continuing series, Studies with Ranga. Today we are working on the synthesis of yoga, the ascent of the sacrifice. Good morning, Ranga.
Good morning, Narad.
So will you begin for us with a summary of the previous paragraph?
Yes,
Thank you.
so that we get the sense of continuity. It's 2 months since we met last, so it's not very easy to remember, so that's why. So, we are discussing, the chapter is
The yoga of divine work.
the ascent of sacrifice. Okay?
Yes.
So, the ascent of sacrifice, so it is a progress. So, now Srimad is 147. So, what is the progress involved? So, that is what we are reading. So, what is the pace of spiritual progress? I am reading out the summary of the previous paragraph. Okay, so, what is the pace? Okay, how fast does the spiritual knowledge come into you? It depends on the individual's bent of nature, on his soul, and his soul need, the need of the soul, and the power of the will and determination. So, the progress of your spiritual knowledge depends upon your individual bent of nature, on the need of your soul, and the power of your will and determination. Okay? So, it differs for everybody. Spiritually, the essence of everything is always the same, but in the manifestation, where the principle of the one becoming the many rules, okay, that is the one that dominates, the many is seen in the variation of individual natures. So, each individual has got his own nature, and therefore, the pace, the progress also is individual. It is not the same for everybody. In the integral yoga, especially, all rigidity and fixity of rules and laws cannot be applicable. Okay? In the others, there is a certain rigidity and a certain method to be followed, but in the integral yoga, each individual has to go in his own way and his own speed. Okay? So, all rigidity and fixity of rules and laws cannot be applicable. All individuals, however similar they may be superficially, internally and externally, they differ from each other. In the manifestation, where the principle of multiplicity is dominant, variety, difference ensures the opulence and wealth of differentiation. Differentiation is necessary because then you have variety. The divine is not dull and uniform and boring. He is full of variation. Okay? All the variations are possible. Still, largely, we may fix a sequence of the serial steps. Okay? These steps often overlap into each other. So, first of all, there is a large inner turning that takes place, in which all mental ideas are referred to the higher or inner authority. Higher authority, yourself; inner authority, your psychic being. All action, emotion and thought is oriented upwards or inwards for inclusion in the spiritual aspiration of the psychic being, which is the priest of the sacrifice. The psychic being is the one that puts you in touch with the divine. When you are making a sacrifice, you need a priest, and the psychic being is the priest. It is the priest who puts you in touch with the divine. So, the psychic being is doing the same function. The second stage is when the soul rises into the upper hemisphere to bring down light, power and ananda into the lower instrumentation, the lower nature of man, body, mind and life. The second stage, light or power and ananda, or all of them together or singly, they come down into the body, mind, life. Here, much of the external activity is abandoned and a central change starts to operate. In other words, when you have this experience of light, normally the outer activity, your profession that you are engaged in or the job that you are doing, there is a loss of interest in that. So, many people give up their jobs and go in search of their deeper knowledge, or in any case, even if you do not give up your job or your old work, there is a central change, the whole thing changes. The inner becomes more important and the outer is not so important anymore. At some stage, old activities put away in the past for a future working are again taken up to check the progress made. Gradually, detachment to all past habits occurs. The old habits which are imperfect slowly start disappearing. The only driving force which was universal nature is now the divine will. Okay? Then in the next stage, a reversal takes place. Instead of a narrowing of focused concentration, there is an enlargement into hitherto unknown areas. The inclusion of all human activity in the spiritual life increases. Now note, but this is only for the integral yoga, for the others it is not. Okay? For the others, there is no inclusion of human activity at all. Rather, you give up the physical world, give up your old habits, give up your own old life. Okay? But for integral yoga, it has to extend into the physical activity of human beings. Okay? So, now, power and capacity appear in the nature for any human activity. Okay? You get the power, the light, power, ananda is coming into you, and you get the necessary power to change your normal activities of the past. The divine within throws, scatters his bounty of new riches, which were always latent inwardly, into the external being of body, life and mind. The individual becomes a mere channel for divine activity in the world. Finally, the master of yoga is seen as the sole mover, decider, shaper of all knowledge and activity. This is what he said in the previous para. So, there are stages.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Mother has often spoken about the lack of human receptivity holding back the descent of the full supermind.
That's right.
In this time, 2023-24,
Yeah.
what is happening?
You are talking of the individual, na? You are talking of
Well,
the individual
that-
resistance.
The individual has to be also the collective, doesn't it?
Okay, so it depends on the receptivity of the individual at an individual level. But in the physical world, the world conditions have to be ready, and that you can interpret as the receptivity of the collectivity. So, that is now the struggle is going on. The struggle is going on. Receptivity, I think, is maybe 20% and the rest is the resistance is 80%. So, we are seeing the resistance, but ultimately the receptivity will win. There is no doubt about it. It may take, but how long it will take, we can't say. Even Mother did not tell us. She told
That's true, yes.
it may take 300 years, it may take 1,000 years, it may take even less. We don't know. So, that is a process of evolution. So, the course of evolution we cannot predict. We could have predicted very lower levels, but in this supramental level, it is very difficult to predict because it is infinite. It is not single. So, what the choices available to supermind is huge. And in fact, Sri Aurobindo says that, he says that we will leave to the supermind to decide what it has to, because it is not possible for a human being to forecast, very difficult. Okay, so that is it. Now we can read the chapter, paragraph that we have to read today. Okay, so we are reading today page 147, the paragraph beginning with, there are two signs of the transformation. So, there are two signs of the transformation of the seeker's mind of knowledge and works of knowledge, from the process of the ignorance to the process of a liberated consciousness working partly, then wholly in the light of the Spirit. I will read the whole paragraph first. There is first a central change of the consciousness and a growing direct experience, vision, feeling of the Supreme and the cosmic existence, the divine in itself and the divine in all things. The mind will be taken up into a growing preoccupation with this first and foremost, and will feel itself heightening, widening into a more and more illumined means of expression of the one fundamental knowledge. But also, this central consciousness in its turn will take up more and more the outer mental activities of knowledge and turn them into a parcel of itself or an annexed province. Okay? It will infuse into them its more authentic movement and make a more and more spiritualized and illumined mind its instrument in these surface fields, its new conquests as well as its own deeper spiritual empire. And this will be the second sign, the sign of a certain completion and perfection, that the Divine Himself has become the knower, and all the inner movements, including the activities of what was once a purely human mental action, have become the field of knowledge, become His field of knowledge. There will be less and less individual choice, opinion, preference, less and less of intellectualization, mental weaving and cerebral galley slave labor. A light within will see all that has to be seen, know all that has to be known, develop, create, organize. It will be the inner knower who will do in the liberated and universalized mind of the individual the works of an all-comprehending knowledge. So, he has described the first and second things. Okay. So, we will go through quickly and see and give the right interpretation of the words. Okay. So, what is it? Because Srimad uses words in a very interesting way, so that you get the more and more information about what he is saying. There are two signs of the transformation of the seeker's mind of knowledge and works of knowledge. Okay? Knowledge can be in the mind and also the works of knowledge. We are discussing here the works of knowledge, we are discussing the karma yoga. Okay? Later on he will discuss the other things. Already we have discussed earlier the jnana yoga path. Okay. So, works of knowledge from the process of the ignorance to the process of liberated consciousness. So, when you are progressing from ignorance, you are slowly going more and more to a liberated consciousness. What is the liberated consciousness? That consciousness which is not subject to body, life and mind. That is it. You will feel that you are outside your body, mind, life. Okay? Working partly, then wholly in the light of the Spirit. So, the Spirit will be guiding your soul, and in the beginning it will be partly, then later on it will be wholly. You have surrendered fully to the Spirit and He is manipulating you, He is moving you like a puppet, if you want. Okay? Yeah. There is first a central change of the consciousness and a growing deeper experience, vision, feeling of the Supreme. It can be any of these. It can be a direct experience, or it can be a vision, or it can be a feeling of the Supreme and the cosmic existence, the divine in itself and the divine in all things. The divine in itself is the transcendent. So, you may have an experience of the transcendent. Like Sri Aurobindo had in Baroda, he had the experience of the transcendent divine. The mind became silent and he entered the Brahmic consciousness. And the divine in all things is the cosmic aspect of the divine. So, the individual will experience the divine either in the cosmos or in the transcendent. Okay? This will be the first central change. The mind will be taken up into a growing preoccupation with this first and foremost, okay, with this first and foremost, and will feel itself heightening, widening into a more and more illumined means of expression of the one fundamental knowledge. What is the one fundamental knowledge? Knowledge of the Spirit, knowledge of God, knowledge of Satchidananda. And you will feel that you are becoming something much more than what you were earlier. You will feel yourself heightening. You will feel now that your behavior is far, far more noble and more heightened than it was earlier. You will feel yourself widening into a more and more illumined means of expression of the one fundamental knowledge. You are understanding?
Could you explain yourself? Yourself, does it mean the mind? Does it mean the heart? Does it mean, what is yourself here, feeling these things?
Oh, divine in itself. No, I couldn't get your question, Narad.
Yeah, you say that yourself is going to feel all these things that Sri Aurobindo is talking about. What is the definition of yourself? What is yourself? What is this self feeling?
Oh, yourself. Oh, you're talking about the self. Okay. The self is the Brahmic consciousness. Okay. And what is the Brahmic consciousness? You feel yourself to be in a static condition. You experience an immutability and you realize that you are not the body mind life and you are pure consciousness. You are not your body, you are not your vital, you are not your mind. Those were instruments given to you because your soul has come out and the soul experiences freedom. It feels itself to be free. It feels itself to be infinite. It feels itself to be immortal. Immortal. You realize that your soul is immortal. This is the experience of the self. Usually the words used are immutable, featureless. There is absolutely no features there at all. Okay? It says just one single a peace and a sense of freedom. That's the self. Okay? So then what he is saying, the first change comes with a small experience. Experience within yourself. The experience can be of the higher planes of consciousness or inward, your psychic. Then the change comes. There is first a central change of consciousness and a growing direct experience. Direct, either you see vision or you feel the presence of the divine, feeling of the supreme and cosmic existence, the divine in itself and the divine in all things. So this we have seen, divine in itself is the transcendent, without the universe, and the divine in all things is the cosmic aspect. Okay? You remember, we repeat again that the divine experience can be of three types. There is a transcendent experience, only the divine without the universe. Second is you see the divine in the universe, a divine presence. Okay? So that's the you feel the divine is there in nature everywhere. That's the experience of the. Or the third one is you feel the divine within yourself. So these are the three fundamental ways you can experience the divine. Okay, so you are heightening, widening, and more illumined means of expression of the one fundamental knowledge. Now, but also the central consciousness in its turn will take up more and more the outer mental activities of knowledge and turn them into parcel of itself or an annexed province. Okay. So, first of all, he is talking about the central consciousness. The central consciousness is not your body mind life. That is the outer peripheral consciousness. But your inner consciousness, central consciousness consists of either the self or the psychic being. So that takes up more and more the outer activities. Earlier you were only aspiring, but the outer activities continued to be what they were. But now the whole attitude towards the mental activities changes, okay, of knowledge, and it turns them into a parcel of itself or an annexed province. It's very much a part of your day-to-day life. That's what it means. Okay. Earlier it was not a part of your day-to-day life, but now it becomes a part of your day-to-day life. It will infuse into them. What is the them? The outer mental activities. So this central consciousness will infuse into them its more authentic movement and make a more and more spiritualized and illumined mind its instrument in these surface fields. Okay. Surface fields, you are reading a book, okay, or even sacred texts, you will understand 10 times more. Then new conquests as well as in its own deeper spiritual empire. Okay. Now this is very interesting because this is exactly what happened to Sri Aurobindo. He used Savitri as a means of ascension of consciousness. Every time he rose to a new level of consciousness, he rewrote Savitri, at least the first canto. Okay. So, I think we have already discussed this once. There are 50 versions of Canto 1. Okay.
Yes.
Book 1,
Yes.
Canto 1, there are 50. Every time he went to a higher level, he rewrote that one to see what is the effect in the physical world. Okay. So that's what it means. New conquest as well as own deeper spiritual empire. And this will be the second sign, the sign of a certain completion and perfection, that the divine himself has become the knower, and all the inner movements, including the activities of what was once a purely human mental action, have become his field of knowledge. So that which was ordinary activity now gets transmuted into a spiritual life. Okay. It becomes a source of knowledge for you. What you were doing earlier, it could be reading or it could be working or anything. It becomes a part of your spiritual life. There will be, now what is the result of that? That is what I am explaining. For there will be less and less individual choice. In other words, the divine guidance will come to you and you are automatically doing the right thing without choosing. You don't have to pray to God anymore or to Mother or Sri Aurobindo and saying, what should I do? I have got two things to do. Either I can do it this way or I can do that way. That slowly starts disappearing and you are guided automatically to what you have to do. So individual choice gets less and less. Opinion also. You are no more so insistent on your own opinions. Preferences also start becoming less. Suppose, for instance, let's say your food preferences. Okay, you have preference for certain types of foods. That becomes less and less. Any food will do. Okay, that's what I meant by preference. Then less and less of intellectualization. Okay, you are not thinking and using your logic for everything. Automatically, when the solution comes to you and seems to be very reasonable, you don't have to think much about it. Mental weaving and cerebral galley slave labor. Now that's a very interesting phrase.
Yes, yes.
Cerebral galley slave labor. In the earlier days, when there were no steamships and there was no diesel engines and all, there used to be only wind power that you used to use. The ships used to travel by wind power. But if the wind is not there, what do? So you employ slaves with oars, make them maybe 50, 60, sit them all and with a count, somebody will be there to give you the count and you start rowing in the sea. Okay? So this is the galley slave labor. In other words, it means very hard labor, thinking. You have to think out solutions. So all that disappears. So cerebral galley slave labor goes away. Okay. A light within will see all that has to be done, know all that has to be known, develop, create, organize. Automatically these things will be less and less your responsibility, more and more the divine is guiding you. Okay. It will be the inner knower who will do in the liberated and universalized mind of the individual the works of an all comprehending knowledge. So it will be the inner knower. Who is the inner knower? Okay. It could be the psychic being or it may not be the psychic being also. There is a difference between the what is called the Jivatman, okay, the soul, the psychic being, but there is also a divine presence in everything. That divine presence also, it is not the same as the psychic being. Okay? So, there is a difference between the two. The psychic being is individual, but the divine presence is not individual, it is universal. But because it is universal, it is acting through you also. There is a difference between the two. So, that is the para that we did today. So, these two changes are the signs of a first effectuation in which the activities of the mental nature are lifted up, spiritualized, widened, universalized, liberated, led to a consciousness of their true purpose as an instrumentation of the divine, creating and developing its manifestation in the temporal universe. But this cannot be the whole scope of the transformation, for it is not in these limits that the integral seeker can cease from his ascension or confine the widening of his nature. For if it were so, the knowledge would still remain a working of the mind, liberated, universalized, spiritualized, but still, as all mind must be, comparatively restricted, relative, imperfect in the very essence of its dynamism. It would reflect luminously great constructions of truth, but not move in the domain where truth is authentic, direct, sovereign and native. There is an ascension still to be made from this height, by which the spiritualized mind will exceed itself and transmute into a supramental power of knowledge. Already in the process of spiritualization, it will have begun to pass out of the brilliant poverty of the human intellect. Okay. It will mount successfully into the pure broad reaches of a higher mind, and next into the gleaming belts of a still greater free intelligence, illumined with a light from above. At this point, it will begin to feel more freely, admit with a less mixed response the radiant beginnings of an intuition, not illumined but luminous in itself, true in itself, no longer entirely mental, and therefore subjected to the abundant intrusion of error. Here too is not an end, for it must rise beyond into the very domain of that untruncated intuition, the first direct light from the self-awareness of essential being, and beyond it attain that from which this light comes. For there is an overmind behind mind, a power more original and dynamic which supports mind, sees it as a diminished radiation from itself, uses it as a transmitting belt of passage downward, or an instrument for the creations of the ignorance. The last step of the ascension would be the surpassing of overmind itself, or its return into its own still greater origin, its conversion into the supramental light of the divine gnosis. For there in the supramental light is the seat of a divine truth consciousness that has native in it, as no other consciousness below it can have, the power to organize the works of a truth which is no longer tarnished by the shadow of the cosmic inconscience and ignorance. There to reach and thence to bring down a supramental dynamism that can transform the ignorance is the distant but imperative supreme goal of the integral yoga. So, he has given you all the steps of the ascension. Okay? We will go back and identify each one and all the words that he is using. It is very, very clear, but we have to read other things to know what he means by the higher mind, illumined mind, etc. So, I go back to the beginning of the para. Okay? So, yeah. These two changes are the signs of a first effectuation in which the activities of the mental nature are lifted up, spiritualized, widened, universalized, liberated, led to a consciousness of their true purpose as an instrumentation of the divine, creating and developing its manifestation in the temporal universe. So, these two changes, what are the two changes? First is the central change that occurs. You have a spiritual experience and your whole life takes a U-turn. You are going in a particular direction, but now you don't go in that direction anymore. Completely the orientation of your life has changed. That's the first change. The second change is your knowledge increases, your understanding of things increases, you feel yourself more and more guided by the divine. This is the second change. So, these are the two changes that he is talking about. Now, the further changes he is discussing in this para. These two changes are the signs of a first effectuation in which the activities of the mental nature, he is talking only of mental nature, not vital nature, because this section is dealing only with the karma, jnana yoga. Okay? He is dealing now with the jnana yoga. If you go back and see the book, you will see that he is dealing with jnana yoga. Okay? The yoga of knowledge. Okay. So, what happens? It is lifted up. What is lifted up from where to where? Lifted up out of the body mind life. Okay? Your consciousness goes out of your body mind life. You feel yourself to be outside the body mind life. Spiritualized. Now, when he speaks of spiritual, he is talking of the second level. Okay? And this entire description here is the second level, up to the overmind level. Then the third level is the supramental. So, keep this mind in a level 1 is your ignorant condition, level 2 is the spiritualized condition, and level 3 is a supramentalized condition. Okay? So, this is very clearly you must have in your mind. So, now he is saying the second level, you are spiritualized, you are widened, you do not have these narrow ideas anymore, you are universalized, you may even have the cosmic consciousness, you are liberated. What is meant by liberated? The soul is not lodged anymore in time and space, it is not lodged in the body, it is outside the body. You can even see your body mind life and think it to be outside yourself. Led to a consciousness of the true purpose as an instrumentation of the divine. Okay? Your body mind life is an instrumentation for the divine to act through you. When you are ignorant in level 1, the divine cannot act because you are not receiving the instructions, and now you are very dense and the light cannot come into your density. Okay? Yeah. Then creating and developing its manifestation in the temporal universe. So, in the temporal universe, level 1, okay, when you are in your body mind life. So, things are changing slowly from the spiritual level, level 2, there is a slow change in your body mind life, there is a slow change, but it is not a transformation, it is just a slow change. Many people feel that even their skin color changing, okay, their all sorts of physical results are there. Okay. Your skin may become smooth, or you may feel that your breathing has improved, all sorts of things happen. Each individual something different happens. But this cannot be the whole scope of the transformation. In other words, he is saying even going to level 2 is not enough, you have to go to level 3, and even in level 2 there are 4 levels. That is what he is going to talk about now clearly. So, but this cannot be the whole scope of the transformation, for it is not in these limits that the integral seeker can cease from his ascension or confine the widening of his nature, which is very possible in the other yogas. Okay? So, if you are doing the jnana yoga and you reach level 2, you are very satisfied, very satisfied. If you are doing bhakti yoga also, you have love for the divine and you are very satisfied, but not for the integral seeker. Okay? If you are doing karma yoga also, you can be satisfied at level 2, but not not for the integral seeker. For it is not in these limits of the level 2 that the integral seeker can cease from his ascension or confine the widening of his nature. He has to go beyond. For if it were so, knowledge would still remain a working of the mind. Now, when he is talking of the mind, it can be even a spiritualized mind, but still there is a limitation. Okay? Working of the mind, liberated, universalized, spiritualized, but still as all mind must be comparatively restricted, relative, imperfect in the very essence of its dynamism. Spiritual level, the level 2 of the spiritual planes of consciousness is wonderful, but still it is liberalized, okay? It is liberated, it is universalized, it is spiritualized, but still it is not the full thing. The full thing will come only at the third level. That is what he is saying. However wonderful it is still comparatively restricted, relative, imperfect in the very essence of its dynamism. It would reflect luminously great constructions of truth, but not move in the domain where truth is authentic. Where is truth authentic? Level 3, supermind. Okay? So, that is the reason why all philosophies, when they go to this level 2 level, they have different opinions. Okay? You have the Advaita philosophy, which is different from all the other philosophies. Okay? So, the Vishishta Advaita and the Bheda, the dualism, all these are different philosophies. That is why there is frequent debate also among them, which is the truth. They are all equal in the spiritual planes of consciousness. Different aspects of the divine are experienced by them. Okay? There is an ascension still to be made from this height. So, the ascension is from level 2 to level 3. Level 3 is the supermind. Okay? That is what he is going to describe now, how that ascension has to be made. There is an ascension still to be made from this height, by which the spiritualized mind, when he is talking of the spiritualized mind, it is very, very clear. He often uses the word also ideal. The ideal mind, that is level 2, very clearly. Okay? Spiritualized mind will exceed itself and transmute into a supramental power of knowledge. There you are. Supramental power, level 3. Qualitatively, totally different. It is not a quantitative change, it is a qualitative change. The quantitative change will occur in level 2, first of a higher mind, then the illumined mind, then the intuitive mind and the overmind. These are quantitative changes, okay? But qualitative change will come in the supramental. So, now we read the next sentence. Already in the process of spiritualization, it will have begun to pass out of the brilliant poverty of the human intellect. Now, this needs a little bit of explanation. Sri Aurobindo is very fond of oxymorons, which you will come across in Savitri in abundance. But here also he is throwing in some of his oxymorons. Brilliant poverty. So, the human intellect compared to the spiritual intellect is poor. That is why it is very poor. The human intellect is far superior to the animal intellect. There is no intellect in the animal, there is a mind. But the spiritual mind is far richer than the human intellect. That is why it is poor. But then why is it brilliant? Because its results can still be stunning. Look what the mind of man has done. It has made the Zoom possible, it has made the computer, it has made the mobile, it has made cars, it has made aeroplanes, we are even going to the moon. All this is the work of what? The mind, the human mind. So, it is brilliant, okay? But still it is poor compared to the spiritual plane. Okay, so it will mount successively. Now, he is giving you the 4 levels. Okay? It will mount successfully into the pure broad reaches of a higher mind. The description of the higher mind is the first spiritual level. The higher mind is like the normal human mind is like a dark room, okay? It is candle lit. In the animal it is not even candle lit, but in the human being it is a dark room, but it is candle lit. You have to struggle to see things where they are. Okay? So, that is but the higher mind is like a broad daylight. He said that is the description elsewhere. Okay? It's like a broad daylight. You don't have to look, you know what things are. You just see and you find them there. Okay? Then next comes the illumined mind. And the next into the gleaming belts of a still greater free intelligence illumined with the light from above. So, the second level is the light from above is illuminating everything, and your understanding and your knowledge increases like nothing before. Okay? It is illuminated from above, no thinking. By all these planes there is no thinking at all. Huh? Okay. Then at this point it will begin to feel more freely, admit with a less mixed response the radiant beginnings of an intuition. So, even higher, first is the higher mind in the spiritual plane, next is the illumined mind, and next is the intuition. And what is the speciality of the intuition? He is explaining, not illumined but luminous in itself. So, when I want to know something, I have to, in darkness, I have to throw a torchlight on the thing. Okay? I am illumining. So, the illumined mind is a condition where the object to be known or the thought to be known or the truth to be known is illuminated from outside. Okay? But in the intuition, it is not illuminated from outside. It is itself, it reveals its own light. Okay? Each object tells the man who is in the intuitive plane of consciousness what it is. It itself, it reveals its own secrets. Okay? The light comes out from the object itself, not illumined, but luminous in itself, true in itself, no longer entirely mental and therefore subjected to the abundant intrusion of error. So, even at the illumined level and the higher mind level, there can be error. He is very clear on that. But the intuition, the error starts becoming less and less. Okay? Not subject to the abundant intrusion of error. There can be error, but it is not abundant. Okay? Here too is not an end. There you are. So, here too is not an end, for it must rise beyond into the very domain of that untruncated intuition. Okay? Intuition is truncated. It is cut, if you want. Okay? It is cut up. But in the overmind, it is full intuition. There is no truncated condition there at all. Okay? So, therefore, subjected to the abundant behavior. Here too is not an end, for it must rise beyond into the very domain of that untruncated intuition, the first direct light from the self-awareness of essential being, and beyond it attain that from which this light comes, for there is an overmind behind mind. So, the overmind is the highest plane in the spiritual plane of consciousness. Okay. Beyond that, you are not in the spiritual plane, you are going into the supramental plane, level 3. So, the lowest level, the lowest plane of consciousness in level 2, the spiritual planes, is higher mind. Next comes the illumined mind, then the intuitive mind, and then you have the overmind. So, overmind is the highest, higher mind is the lowest, and then you go beyond level 2 into level 3. Okay? So, that is the supramental plane. For there is an overmind behind mind, a power more original and dynamic which supports mind. So, our normal mind is coming down from the overmind level, sees it as a diminished radiation from itself, uses it as a transmitting belt of passage downward or an instrument for the creations of the ignorance. So, we will stop here today, and the last is the supramental light. Okay? So, he has described this, just there are 2-3 lines more only, but he is telling you this is a gradation. So, he has given you the different steps of the progress to be made in the spiritual field. First you rise from level 1 to level 2, and in level 2 there are 4 planes, and finally you go to level 3, which is supramental light. And this is necessary for the integral yoga. The other yogas can stop at level 2, but not the integral yoga. Okay, so I will make a note that we have to read next from the as the light of each. Okay?
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ranga. Remember, folks, tomorrow is Savitri. Same time, 9:45 to 10:30.
Yeah, that's right.